Title: Dawn Worship 201 to 1 Corinthians 11 Contents 1 Corinthians 11 First, there must be order in worship, verses 2 to 16. The church must keep its traditions well, verse 2. If you ignore tradition, you can easily fall into self-indulgence and conceit. It was customary for women to grow their hair and wear a towel during public services. The act of wearing a towel symbolizes obedience and purity. The reason why a woman wears a towel on her head is, first, because of the divine order, verses 3 to 7. A woman's head is a man. Second, because of the creation order, verses 8 to 12. Men and women are in that order. Third, because of the natural order, verses 13 to 15. Men have short hair and women have long hair. But we must not reject and argue against this practice, v. 16. Second, the love feast must be profitable, verses 17 to 22. In the early church, the Lord's Supper was held in the order of love feast, agape, and the Lord's Supper, Eucharist. The closer the second coming of Jesus is, the more diligent the church must meet, Hebrews 10:25. However, in the church in Corinth, the meeting was unprofitable and harmed, verse 17. This is because there was a dispute because of the faction, verses 18 to 19. In other words, they could not be together, but gathered together, verses 20 to 21, 33 to 34. Gathering together becomes the Lord's Supper, but gathering with each other becomes one's own dinner. A love feast that cannot be shared with the poor person is an act of despising the Church of God, verse 22. Third, there must be reverence in the sacrament. Verses 23 to 32. Paul was taught the sacrament directly from Jesus. The bread of the Lord's Supper symbolizes the body of Jesus, verses 23 to 24, and the cup symbolizes the blood of Jesus, verse 25. Those who take part in the Lord's Supper must first remember Jesus, verses 24 to 25. As we partake of the Lord's Supper, we must reflect on Jesus' death and its meaning. Second, we must preach Jesus, verse 26. As we partake of the Lord's Supper, we must proclaim the death of Jesus until the second coming. Third, we must participate worthy of it, verse 27. As we partake of the Lord's Supper, we must examine ourselves, verses 28 to 29. Those who failed to do so were disciplined, verses 30 to 32. Q. Are you imitating Jesus and the pastor through worship, love feast, and sacrament?